South Africa became South Africa as we know it today in 1994, which was just shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the conclusion then was communism had been defeated and will be globally replaced by liberal democracy. And then Francis Fukuyama famously wrote The End of History, saying that, that's going to be the future. We're now at the end point of human development. We're all going to standardize we're all going to be liberals. And it was at the height of this hype when the South African Constitution was written, with the assumption that actually we're all just the same and we're all just going to become the same. And that's why it's in a very important way. I think you mentioned the open society right at the beginning. South Africa is a good example of the sort of an open society experiment. It was at the height of this theory that it was constituted. And I have a sort of anecdote on that. The first time I came to America was in 2012, and I spoke at an event at the United Nations in New York. I participated in a conference, and someone sort of pulled me to the side and said that it was someone who worked at the UN, a pretty senior guy. And he said to me, "Look, I see what you're trying to do, but don't do it." He said to me, "It's not going to work." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said that some of us can see that the cracks are showing in South Africa, but you have to understand that for us, South Africa is the example that should be followed by the world in terms of ideology, in terms of the political system, in terms of the structure. So it's not in our interest. We don't want to talk about the problems in South Africa because that's sort of ideologically what we want to end up with. And now, in as far as it's failing, it creates a problem. And he was sort of weirdly on my side, trying to give some advice that it's not going to work. But now the failure is up to the point where you can't deny it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that's partly why it's so controversial to talk about the failure in South Africa, because it shouldn't fail, because theoretically it's good, but it's not.